Welcome back to the booth here at Mythic Championship 1 from Cleveland. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe with Simon Gertzen. We're down the stretch here on the draft rounds. This is the last one. This is the last time that these players will touch any other deck except for their standard deck for the rest of the tournament. And in the feature match area, we have two players sitting at X and 2. Luis Scott-Vargas is one of them. He has a nice Rakdos deck put together here, and he's managed to get by some pretty tough decks to get to the finals of his pod against Adriano Moscato from Italy, sitting across from him, of course, also at 8 and 2. The players are down in the feature match area. Let's head down. It's time for the last round of draft here from Cleveland. Hello and welcome back to coverage here of Mythic Championship 1 from Cleveland, Ohio. Marshall Sutcliffe in the booth with Simon Gertzen. And we've got one more round of draft to bring you before we transition back over to standard. In the feature match area, one Luis Scott-Vargas from the United States. He's playing for Team Channel Fireball, and he has a very solid 8 and 2 record, looking to finish off the pod against Adriano Moscato from Italy, also on 8 and 2. This is a big win for either player here. Getting that X and 2, as the players like to say, record going into this standard portion would be fantastic for either of these two gentlemen. Now, they'll still be in top 8 contention regardless, but boy, there's such a big difference between 2 losses and 3 with the kind of wiggle room that you get when you're playing standard going for the next 5 rounds after this.
And you don't get a lot of wiggle room at the Mythic Championship, not with 500 players competing for 8 spots.
Very large. You know, that's almost 100 players larger than your average Pro Tour as they were known before. And look at this. Clam or Shaman. Looks like Shaman's going to be the pick here for Luis Scott-Vargas. He's going to get in for 3 damage, cleanly past that Sage's Rose Savant. Luis has a deck that's a little bit light on removal. It does have some. He's got a Scorch Mark and a Skewer the Critics. It's not that he doesn't have any, but usually when you see the combination that Rakdos presents, you actually can really find a lot of removal spells in this color combo, and Luis doesn't have that many, at least by volume, but he does have ways to push his creatures through for damage regardless, and this is one of them, Clamor Shaman.
No, his deck is really built around an incredible curve. Adriano looks to be more on the power level side of things. We see him with Incongruity and now Azorius Guild Mage. So that's a good start against Rakdos, I have to say.
Not bad. Also, Rakdos in theory thus far. I do not see any black mana on the side of Luis Scott-Vargas.
Mono red aggro.
There you go. So Luis is going to make kind of an interesting attack here. He's just going to attack with the Maka. That is going to get traded off, but he did not want to offer the Clamor Shaman for trades for that Sage's Rose Savant. But he does follow up with a Gore Clan Wrecker. He's going to use the Riot ability to put +1/+1 counter on it before passing it back. But this means that Adriano, while under some pressure, does get to keep Senate Guildmage on the battlefield, which is very powerful, although this gets kind of interesting. Land go on 4 mana from Adriano. This is going to raise the red alert here for Luis, although as it turns out, it's Slimebind, reducing the damage from 4 just down to 1.
And the thing is that Muscato is not just white-blue. He's not just Azorius. He's playing effectively Bond, so has green cards in his deck, has that Sylvan Brush Strider, which would actually be quite good against what Luis is doing, who, by the way, he doesn't have black mana. He doesn't need it.
Yeah, so far he's been humming along quite nicely here. He's got Spike Wheel, Acrobat. This follow-up, thanks to the Spectacle ability, he only has to pay 3 for it, and that let him have 1 additional mana for a Spear Spewer as well. So things looking actually quite good for Luis, even though somehow he's not he's missing half of his colors.
Muscato found his 3rd color, so dug deep with Senate Guildmage, found a forest on top of his library.
Okay, so what can he do with it? Well, nothing just yet. Once again, he's passing with 4 mana available. And let's see what Luis has lined up. I mean, there's no blockers anyway. He says, I want to go to combat. One of the cards that Luis certainly will be thinking about, and I don't know if Muscato has it. Actually, we can just look at his hand right here, and he doesn't. It's going to be pre-combat. He says, you know what, I got to lock down this Clamor Shaman. And by the way, that's one of the powerful things about it, is that that's the target. Even though it's the lowest power creature that can actually attack for Luis, that's the one that's going to eat that up. I was going to say Depose Deploy would be on Luis's radar as well, because it kind of sidesteps the Clamor Shaman and lets him get value while gaining some life. But that isn't the case here. Instead, he's just going to play the 3-2, gain some life. Lose one of the life again, though. The Spear Spewer could be a problem for Muscato, as he is significantly behind in the damage race, and the Spear Spewer can be pretty annoying from that position.
Quick note that white is actually the splash color for Adriano. Maybe it's becoming more obvious now that he's deploying more green cards. That Senate Guildmage is one of the splash cards.
Let's see if Luis can find his splash color, air quotes. He still hasn't been able to find black mana, but this is just one of those draws where he had, you know, probably 3 mountains and a bunch of red cards and was like, fine, and then drew more mountains and more red cards and is like, all right. Because let's see what's in his hand here, Simon. Does he have black cards? He does. Fireblade Artist and Pestilent Spirit are kind of rotting away in his hand, and I think his draw step was a Rakdos Roustabout perhaps as well. So it is starting to hurt a little bit here for Luis.
This is where you have to draw a black source very soon, with the issue being that even if you find the swamp, you're not going to deploy all your cards all at once, but you're going to deploy them one turn after the other.
Wow, he drew his card and just passed the turn back once again. And even though there was a good start here, he's got Scorch Mark. That is just fine as a draw, because really the only true pressure he was facing on this board wasn't actually from damage. It was from that Guild Mage just modifying Adriano's draws and making sure that he was in great shape.
Significantly reducing the velocity.
By the way, look at this. Adriano's going to play a Chillbringer, and he's going to tap down the only blocker to get the damage in, and that also allows the Spear Spewer to keep getting activated. Luis does activate it, and there's a swamp off the top of the library, allowing him to cast that Pestilent Spirit.
Yeah, and Adriano's reasoning here is that it can't be too bad if Spear Spewer is getting activated, because currently he is the one pressing for the advantage and trying to win this damage race.
Yeah. 4 mana here for Muscato, and there's a big life swing back in favor. It's only 2 life, but boy, when your opponent's been activating Spear Spewer every turn, that matters a lot. And of course, the 2 extra cards from Sphinx's Insight don't hurt either.
Yeah.
And look at this, he's going to attack for 5. Muscato feels that he's the one,
of course,
who's on the beat down here.
And he's racing here. That Spear Spewer looks like a liability in this matchup. Actually, the matchup overall doesn't look great.
Ooh, look at this. Luis
Rakdos.
has no fear. As he often says on his stream, this is not a coward stream. He's going to go ahead and activate the Spear Spewer. So somebody has to be wrong here, right?
Yeah, but both players have their reasoning, right? Adriano says, I know you can activate that Spear Spewer, but I'm still going into the race because that's my best, that maximizes my win percentage. And Luis says, I see you're going into the race, but if I'm ever to win from this position, it's with damage. It's by getting that Fireblade Artist onto the battlefield that you don't know about, and so on and so on.
Right, and so Luis actually had an attack for 5 lined up there, but it was reduced to just 2 by yet another Slimebind. I'm not going to lie, I do love seeing one of my favorite cards in the format, Slimebind, kind of overperforming in the feature match area here. That said, Luis did get the Fireblade Artist down and in for 2, and now it can start sacrificing these slime-bound creatures and making it look a little bit worse here. This is going to be a close one. Maybe I spoke a little too soon. How about Biogenic Ooze for Muscato? This is going to make life very difficult now for Luis Scott-Vargas, and you finally see him pump the brakes on the Spear Spewer here as he's down to 5 life. And boy, I feel...
he did once again activate.
Oh, did he activate it?
Because he was at 6, which is a 2-turn clock from the Flyers.
I must have missed it. So he does feel like he can set up a win here. So how does this work, Simon? He can do 1 from the Spear Spewer, 2 from the Fireblade Artist per turn, and even the Roustabout can get a guaranteed 1 minimum in.
And then you get another one from the Spear Spewer if it survives this this combat.
But Luis is forced to make some pretty uncomfortable blocks here. Block. He reconsidered block. Because this way he can keep the Gore Clan Wrecker on the battlefield to be sacrificed later. So he ended up taking 3 there and going to 2, but that is actually the Ooze going away. So what does Muscato have?
Well, He has a bunch of lethal creatures.
This is the same time, the second time I'm trying to say here, that we've seen a player with both Mesmerizing Benthet and the Ooze in the same draft. Like that was last round.
Crazy. Let's see if Luis has a plan to get out of this.
Right, he's down to 1.
So does he have outs to get there?
That is the question, because I believe, are we on his upkeep right now?
Yeah, he's debating what to do with the Fireblade Artist.
Yeah, I mean, at first glance, it would seem that he will not be able to survive the next turn regardless, especially given that we can see he has a Chillbringer.
Oh, he's playing main deck Active Treason. That's probably one of the cards he was playing towards as his out. I see, what do I see? 2 damage from the Artist, 1 damage from the Spewer. So Muscato would be on 4, which leaves him at 1.
But Luis is at 1.
Oh, so
yeah,
but still, I mean, if you can force a draw.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. That's a good point.
It's better than the loss.
It is. Luis decides not to sacrifice any to the Fireblade Artist and draw his card from the turn. Let's see what he's got in his hand right now. Oh boy. Rakdos Firewheeler, but no second black mana. Scorchmark, not enough here. Casting a Roustabout, he would just die, and so Luis is going to scoop them up. You know, it felt like to me, if I'm sitting in Luis's seat, that it was quite close. There were a few things that he could have drawn to help shore up the game, but really it came down to him not having black mana for the almost the duration of the game.
Given how close it was, despite him missing the black mana for so long, it's quite obvious that had he had the black mana earlier, he would have gotten in those additional points of damage.
By the way, Muscato, wow, nice stuff from him. You know, he's got 2 big bombs in his deck, especially the Biogenic Ooze, and he even had ways to dig them up. He was actually looting through and going through his library trying to get to those bombs. So a powerful 3-color deck from Muscato is able to pick up game number 1. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, though, we'll have more live draft magic here from Cleveland. Don't go anywhere. And welcome back to the feature match area here in Cleveland. We're covering Mythic Championship 1. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe with Simon Gertzen, and we are in the last round of booster draft here before we transition back over to standard. Let's take a look at Peter Głogowski playing against Michael Bondy. And where are we at here? Well, it looks like Michael is up a game. And right now, a bit of a standoff unless that amplifier is huge. Ooh. Piotr's getting frisky here, sending in the two 2/3s.
Yeah, representing a combo trick here because
Or
those
multiple.
2-3s are not good against Skater Heel. And of course, Amplifier grew this turn. We just don't know
Right,
the
we
exact size.
just came in a little late to see exactly how big it is, but even then, the other 2-3 bouncing off of a 2-4 isn't great either. So Piotr really representing something here, and Bondy says, "You know what? Fine, block, block. What do you got?"
Collision Colossus.
No, that can't be it. Applied Biomancy. Return your 2-4 Flying Spirit of the Spires +1/+1 on my 2-3 to gobble up your non-adapted Skitter Eel and hit you with whatever's left.
Ouch.
Ow. Although I will say, if I'm Paul Cheon at this point, I'm like, well, that's what we designed it for, right? I mean, that's what Applied Biomancy is supposed to do.
It's actually surprising how often it's not that great, right?
Yeah,
because when you read it, it's like, wow, that's absurd.
Yeah, it's just an unsummon or something like that. All right, back to the main table. Luis Scott-Vargas and Adriano Moscato, both at 8-2 coming into the round. This is the finals of that draft pod. They both won their first two. Luis could not find black mana and fell a little bit behind after actually getting significantly ahead early in the game. And Muscato really got to kind of flex the muscles of this deck a little bit. He's 3 colors, and boy, he's got some nice stuff in there. His mana needs to cooperate. You can see he's got Open the Gates to help with that. He's just going to get an island this time, though. But boy, if it does, the power level's there for Adriano.
Oars of Guildgate is a sideboard card from Luis Scott-Vargas. He's black-red.
What has he brought in?
Game 1. Yeah, I'm trying to find the white cards that he would be interested in. I'm looking at Final Payment maybe as a way to deal with expensive creatures.
With the ooze, yeah. Again,
Mortify he has also.
Oh, he definitely brought that in then. He probably just figures he can't beat the ooze without it. Really interesting here as well is that Adriano has built his deck in such a way that he is searching through it often. Like the first 2 turns of the game, he's playing Search. We saw him play Incubation earlier in game number 1 as well. He can really kind of work through his library to find the things that he needs, which is, whether it's mana or threats.
Yeah, not a huge fan of the Plaza of Harmony in his deck because it only works to fix his mana if he draws at least one of his gates.
Yes.
So I feel like it's adding a little bit too much variance to an otherwise great deck.
By the way, really nice start here for Luis. He played a turn 2 Trumpeter, fine, but he used that to make sure he got in that damage for Spectacle to light up the stage. Then he hit a land off of that and Clamor Shaman. Then he played that on turn 3 and even had a tapped Guildgate. Axebane Beast is the only thing that Muscato can muster here, and that's not going to do anything this turn because it's just 2 damage coming in anyway. Though it's not a devastating hit. It's only 2 from Luis, so he does need a follow-up to put some oomph behind this Clamor Shaman. And that works. Recto's Roustabout plus a land. He says go. This is a big turn, though, for Muscato because turn 5 is where the fireworks start for him. If he can go land and one of his 2 mythic 5-drops, he could be in great shape. And he has one. Boom.
That attack with Axebane Beast is aggressive.
Is it? I mean, he just played a 4/5 hexproof with 2 O2s that lock down your creatures. What can Luis do about that? I like it. Muscato's just like, I'm getting in.
Consume.
Ooh, don't even say that. Does Luis have one?
No.
We know he's Rakdos in the main, but we
No.
have seen that. Yeah, that. Yeah, that would have been different. Simon, pretty good call. But right now, the Mesmerizing Benthid is really just a showstopper here. A complete brick wall for Luis's curve out so far.
Luis is also not bad. Daggercaster, Rakdos Firewheel, Dead Revels, a lot of things to work with. But of course, the hexproof is a huge problem here.
So he's going to go for the Firewheeler. That's going to take down one of the illusion tokens and knock Muscato down to 13. But the attacks don't look great here for Luis. He really did move into that white splash. You see even a basic plains in here as well.
Yeah, the rule of thumb is you need, on the splash, you need about 1 mana source more than the number of cards you bring in. So if you bring in 1 card, you want 2
Whoa.
sources. If you bring in 2 cards, you want three
Look
sources.
at this attack from Adriano Moscato. He's actually sending in
I
his
think,
hexproof
I think
creatures.
he's a bit too aggressive.
Yeah, this is. I mean, it does clearly represent some type of trick, but boy, if you lose your Benthet, if this goes wrong for you, card is really holding down the fort against Luis.
Yeah, but look at his hand.
What is his hand?
Stony Strength as a back-breaking combat trick potentially.
Wait, he has biogenic ooze as well.
And he has the ooze. So
What?
actually, like, you don't even want to Stony Strength this turn. I think you just want to get the ooze on the battlefield. So here we probably see Slimebind as the combat trick of choice.
Luis goes for the double block, the Rakdos Firewheeler, and the Roustabout.
Muscato's deck is pretty absurd.
It's insane. And interestingly, right, we saw earlier in the day there were some 3-color decks, but some of the cards were like, okay, I guess you're in 3 colors and you're still, your best card is a Skittereel at this point or whatever. Muscato, no. He's gone for the 3 colors, but with a mega upside here. I mean, he's got some really powerful stuff. Yeah, so this does mean, though, that that's really all he's doing this turn is just casting the Slimebind, but it was 2 for 1. He's happy with it, and he plays that Simic Gilgate and passes his turn back. What can Luis even do to get out of this, especially once that ooze hits the battlefield? I mean, this is going to be devastating. He does give up a bit of damage here, though, does Muscato, by making that attack, as Luis still has Clamor Shaman and can say, well, that Axebane Beast can't block.
Muscato can actually go for a very aggressive Stony Strength, just so that he can use his spells, get things on the board, take as little damage as possible.
Yeah, he chose not to. I'm a little surprised to see him not. But it works out well for him.
But that's a small victory for Luis,
Yes.
who gets something with the Dagger Caster.
Right, 1 damage from Dagger Caster plus the 1 damage from the Clamor Shaman does kill that illusion token. But in the meantime, Muscato is just jamming here. Luis is going to chump block, but here we go. Ooze, biogenic version. And Luis just takes a quick look at his hand, but with no answers for it. This thing's just going to be over in short order.
Luis sideboarded in those white removal spells, we have to assume. Didn't draw any of them.
Meanwhile, Adriano filtered through his library a little bit and found both Biogenic Ooze and Mesmerizing Benthet. This is the same story as game number 1. And this is just raw power level that you're seeing here. I mean, the designers at Wizards of the Coast and R&D, when you tell them, okay, well, we need a green mythic rare for this set or a blue mythic rare for this set, I mean, they take the gloves off. They're willing to put some very powerful, even, constructed level stuff in here. And when you see it in limited, it's just like, whoa.
And sometimes it's the other way around, right?
Wow, look at this block.
Yeah, this is
super risky.
Stony Strength.
Yeah, but Blade Brand would be a disaster here for Muscato.
I mean, Blade Brand would have been a disaster with the Dagger Caster last turn, so...
That's a good point.
Yeah.
At any rate, he didn't have it. And there's Pestilent Spirit. And again, Luis, if he had a burn spell, would use it there, as the burn spell would get Death Touch. Sounds weird to say, but that is how Pestilent Spirit works. He would not let Muscato untap and have the ability to make more oozes. And Muscato has no chill, jamming with a squad.
Luis counting the damage there.
Yeah, he's just seeing if he's still alive. In this case, he is, but barely.
And if he goes to 4, he's actually facing a bunch of lethal threats here.
Right. Muscato is fine trading off his Biogenic Ooze here for the Pestilent Spirit because he gets to make an Ooze token on the way out. And he did not save the best for last. Persistent Petitioners is the last card he's going to play, but it should not matter here. He has assembled a dominating board against Luis Scott-Vargas, and he's simply overpowered him both in game 1 and game number 2 to secure his victory here. we're probably just going through the motions at this point because Muscato looks like he's going to win his draft pod and be 9-2, and he did not have it on easy mode either. I mean, when you sit down and or when you go over to the pairings board and it's like, oh great, I'm playing Luis Scott-Vargas to try to win this pod. It's one of your worst case scenarios from a 500 player field, and Muscato, no problem.
Luis was certainly aware that his deck is not the best, so he is going into this match saying, I'm 2-0, I'm 8-2, I definitely want to win this match, but I also know that my chances are not incredibly high. And I think he also hit exactly the matchup that he doesn't really want to play, with the high-powered creatures, but ones that you can't just remove easily because of hexproof or just the multiplying ability of the ooze.
Here's Dead Revels, one of the 2 copies that Luis has in his deck. And I mean, this is a powerful play. He's getting back 2 of his better creatures, but is it just simply too late? And it is simply too late. Adriano Moscato defeats Luis Scott-Vargas and wins the draft pod at 3-0. And Adriano is looking to try to run it up in the standard portion now. Luis says, yes, your deck is very good. We noticed that too. So great job by Adriano, and now he just needs to lean on the standard portion. But with a 9-2 record with 5 more rounds. Now, you mentioned earlier, and it's very worth noting here, is the fact that there are nearly 500 players in the field at this Mythic Championship. There's 499, in fact, and that does push that threshold a little higher and a little higher as you need a better and better record to try to actually get into the top 8. But still, with a 9-2 record, things are looking pretty good for Adriano if he can put a run together here.
And if you want to have a rule to follow, you want to have 3 losses or a better record heading into the last round, because then your chances of being able to ID are quite high. So that you sit down against somebody who is also at 3 losses and you say, should we just intentional draw? Yes, we are both making the top 8. Great. That's it.
Right. So that's going to be the goal for these players. Now, if you're sitting in Luis Scott-Vargas' seat, you mentioned that your goal is to get to that last round with 3 losses. Well, that means that he has no losses to give to get to that point. And
but at the same time, it's only 4 rounds until you have that last round. So 4 matches in a row, that's something that Luis Scott-Vargas can for sure achieve. We know he has won more matches in a row than that.
That's right. So we're going to head back down to the feature match area where we have this last table running here. And this is one that we got to pop in for just a minute a little while ago. This is Peter Głogowski playing against Michael Bondy. And as we come in here, Michael has actually a better record than Piotr. They're 9-1 for Michael, and Piotr's sitting at 8-2. And we are underway. So let's see how this thing pans out. There's Michael's signature card, the Prowling Caracal. We saw that multiple times that he's been playing in the feature match area.
His 2-drop of choice.
It is.
We've seen Bondy's deck quite a few times. It's this Esper aggro deck, I want to call it. But Piotr is on something a little bit more spicy. And let me count the number of basics. That's 8 basics, leaving room for 9 gates. That's quite impressive.
Wow.
So this is the true gate deck with double gate Colossus. Yeah, this is what I like to play.
Yeah, me too. If you can get it, it's hard to get, but when you can, it's fantastic. An interesting interaction here, by the way, early. Głogowski attacked with a Sauroform hybrid into the Prowling Caracal, offering the trade, and Michael declined it.
Because he's the aggro deck.
I suppose so. And then lost his creature anyway to a Skewer the Critics.
Oh, wow. Piotr's deck is something else. Not only does he have the double gate Colossus, but he has double Tome of the Guild Pact with a bunch of gold cards across all the guilds.
Głogowski went super deep.
And then you have the double Amplifier.
Oh, I love
and
it.
Amplifier and Gate Colossus actually have a
16.
pretty nice synergy.
Yeah, I've done it.
Wow. I've had decks like this on MTG Arena, of course. They are definitely a lot of fun if you hit your mana.
Well, Twilight Panther here for Michael Bondy is not super impressive on turn 4, but maybe.
Bondy's deck does not look like a 2-1 deck, right? It looks like something that is maybe good for 1 win.
It looks like a 1-2 deck.
And that's
It is tracking.
yeah.
But, I mean, he's still got a chance here, right? Oh,
Absolutely.
Michael's going to read the Gate Colossus. There's no good news on that one there, Michael. You can see it on the right side of your screen.
Currently, it's an 8/8 unblockable.
That's right. That comes back if you do actually manage to kill it.
This is where you almost absolutely need to have a Bring to Trial in your main deck or sideboard if you want to be able to beat a real Gate Colossus deck.
Yeah, because the problem is that, you know, one of the best answers for a huge creature like this are the Death Touch creatures in the format, like one of them you see on the battlefield here, and they don't block it.
No, and once you play this format a bunch, you just realize that it's so huge that Simic and Gruul can do almost nothing against it.
Yes.
The Death Touch creatures of Orzhov are very well ill-positioned against it. And if you don't have an exile removal spell, it will come back. Azorius has probably the most answers to it, but at the same time, it's also the weakest when it comes to blocking.
That's right. Yeah, they need that Law Mage's Binding, which is the best common answer for it, because it leaves it on the battlefield while taking it out of contention. So Michael's going to chip in for 2 damage with the Minister of Inquiry. Is this, excuse me, not Minister of Inquiries. Is this going to be enough, though? Can he actually piece together some type of a race? Because one thing about the Gate Colossus, your life total plummets extremely quickly. Like, you think, okay, I can do this, I can do that, and you just look and you're like, I'm going to be dead in 2 to 3 turns. It happens so quickly.
Michael has 3 power on board, facing down 10 power, potentially 14 power at some point. And he's playing these really mediocre cards, and maybe as an explanation, that's why they are mediocre, because they don't have that kind of impact that you want in Limited.
Mm-hmm. I love it. Głogowski has gone so deep with these sweet cards and this, you know, the Gate Colossus and stuff, that when his opponent plays a mediocre card like 10th District Veteran, he's like, what does that do? He had to read it, pick it up and read it. So one thing that Bondy does have access to that he may go for here, and it is very painful to even think of, is that he could play Arrester's Zeal on his Panther, then block and give it Death Touch. And then you just know, though, that Głogowski's going to be like, cool, Gate, go. Put the thing on top of my library. And it looks like Bondy's decided against it, perhaps thinking that he could somehow piece together something of a race. But as you can see, Głogowski now has 6 mana available, and that hybrid is threatening to adapt.
Yeah, the hybrid is there to hold the ground, and the Colossus is taking down the game. Let's not forget that Piotr's deck is actually this crazy Tome of the Guild Pact deck, where he apparently is playing, let me check, all but 2 of the gold cards he drafted, and he drafted a bunch of them. So his hand is actually 2 applied Biomancies. That means if Michael is going for any kind of combo tricks or is trying to get tricky in any other way, Piotr is ready to punish that. And actually, Piotr could use both of the Biomancies to attack for lethal. If Bondy taps out,
It's just game.
you just swing for lethal. If your mana works out, yeah, I see. Or I think the guild gates work out.
I think that last one is a Gruul Guild Gate,
So
which
that
would make it
that
work,
makes
yeah.
green. And then you have two blue sources.
Yep.
Perfect mana.
So let's see if Bondy, he chipped in with the Minister of Obligation again, but the old post-combat Civic Stalwart. Kind of interesting. So clearly Michael's plan involves, in some level, chump blocking once.
Yeah, and now if Piotr goes for it, it's actually not lethal because Bondy can use his Arrester's Zeal.
Yes, but he is going to go for it.
Which I think is okay. Why don't you?
Well, he left the one that can actually still block.
I don't get that. That doesn't make that doesn't make a lot of sense.
No, I mean, it's still a perfectly great attack, and Głogowski should be able to win this.
But still, you have to force. You have to force.
And that look on the face of Peter Głogowski says, "Whoops, I left the wrong one behind." He's kicking himself for that.
He knew what he wanted to do, and then he kind of brain farted.
Yes.
Maybe also played too quickly.
Yes.
I think it's always a bad sign when somebody drops 2 cards at the same time.
Agreed.
You should just, if you see the most composed players, they will just say, applied Biomancy, does it resolve?
Yep.
Okay. See maybe how your opponent reacts to it, and then.
I mean, you and I had an awkward situation at the end of the standard rounds yesterday.
Double hostage taker.
Right, and that isn't. You can't do that, right? There's triggers to resolve, and that kind of thing. It didn't end up
definitely
sloppy.
Piotr also making a sloppy play there.
Yeah. It's so unlikely that he gets fully punished here, because the truth is that the applied biomancies, even if he didn't get the win that turn, nor would he have, they still bounced the creatures and set back Michael Bondy to a position where he needed to chump block and was left with just 2 power on the battlefield. It's not like he can just say, well, then I kill you instead.
Absolutely. It was a huge tempo swing. The hybrid got through, and now Bondy is going to go for that play with the Arrestor Zeal, hoping for something to work out here.
The desperation play. Yeah, the interesting part about that, too, is if Głogowski had kept the applied biomancy, that play is not possible, because he can simply bounce it in response. It's not like Michael can block and then do it. He has to do it before blocks. But he doesn't have it, although any removal spell would also get the job done. Now Głogowski's, he's really buckled back down. He said, okay, I made a hasty play there, but I'm going to now really try to think about what could go wrong here. So this is the first stage, though, for Bondy. He's going to make his Panther bigger so that it can actually block, and then he's going to get a chump block and then a death touch. This looks like a sweet play. This is unlikely to actually win him the game. This is desperation time for Bondy.
Yeah, because it's so difficult to deal with the Colossus, and we know Głogowski has been waiting to play that gate.
Yeah. He actually has Amplifier, but didn't play it, I believe.
That's a good play.
He would lose his Gate Colossus,
it's
although
actually,
it would be a huge amplifier.
But it doesn't have Trampler, right?
Nope.
So you can get a 16-16 once, but what you really want is the Colossus itself.
That's right. So smart play from Głogowski. That's the kind of thing that's interesting, right? He made that hasty play with the applied biomancies that was just like a kind of a head slapper for him. But at the same time, you can see that he hasn't let him break his concentration, because it would have been very easy to be like, okay, I'll do this and then play Amplifier and go, oh, wait a minute, it's gonna shuffle it away, or
It's actually quite cool. He has exactly 4 gates now, so should be able to play the Gate Colossus and Amplifier, and then he's very likely to have 3 lethal attackers next turn.
Bondy chips in for 1 and gets down the Grasping Thrall. Whoop, one at a time there, Chief. But in the meantime, we call this Abyss mode, right? This is a very old card from Legends that says that one of your opponent's creatures dies every turn. And that's kind of what happens when you're sitting here staring at a creature that is a lethal attacker and all your creatures are smaller, is that you're forced to chump block every single time. And now he has 2 of those and maybe even 3 coming up. So it gets really, really tough for Michael, because he's trying to mount an offensive. And, to be fair to Michael, he's done a great job of hanging in this game and making it something. And maybe he has some line of play that could get him out of it, but it's so difficult when you're so overpowered on board.
And if it wasn't for the blocking restriction on the Colossus, he might even have that line, because with the Orzhov afterlife tokens and maybe something to just get in for the final points in the air, I could totally see Bondy is stealing this game, and his deck has been stealing quite a few games here.
Yeah, I mean, he won 1 round with it. In the meantime, he is attacking for 4 in the air. He does have Głogowski down to 4.
You have to play to your outs. So you actually see 3 chump blocks.
Look at him cross his fingers. He says, don't have anything. Don't hit. It's Amplifier.
That's huge.
That's actually the smallest.
It's not huge.
Yes. But he does have a draw step.
That was the worst card to hit.
That was literally the worst. I don't think he has anything with less power than 1 in his deck.
Although he has a bunch of Rubble Slingers, which are also not great. But still, if he hits something there that forces the chump block, makes a huge difference. Oh my God, is Bondy really somehow winning this game?
Bondy is sitting there with both fingers crossed, just saying, don't hit, and he didn't. But of course, that does not count the draw step from Głogowski.
But now, what did Głogowski draw?
Right, I want to know.
If he attacks into the oligarch, then Bondy has four points of power in the air. And if he doesn't attack, then Bondy also has 4 points of power in the air.
Oh, and
Oh
Michael
my
Bondy
God.
stole that game. What an incredible win for him. And talk about getting maximum punishment for that sloppy play with the applied biomancies. It still seemed, going all the way down to that last turn, that Głogowski was still going to be able to come up with the win there. And Michael Bondy just stuck in there over and over and over and found the win. Exactly. Go back to the little plays he made. That one attack with the 1 token. That was critical, right? Each of these little tiny plays added up to him needing to get lucky. He did. He needed to get like that amplifier. If it was big enough, it would have thrown a wrench in the works. And he did. And what a well-earned victory for Michael Bondy.
I think most importantly, he allowed Piotr to make that mistake, right?
Yeah.
Piotr felt confident enough that basically what can go wrong at this stage,
Yeah,
right?
just
you have a Colossus, you have a 6/6, you have 2 applied biomancies. It's only a matter of putting them on the table, and most opponents, well, they probably wouldn't concede, but they would be devastated. And Bondy, with this deck, he knows that he has to get all the edges he can, and he did.
Yeah, he stayed calm and collected. He said, so I can block? And he's like, what am I thinking? Yeah, go ahead, block, chump block. And then those things just continued over and over again until Bondy found the win. Wow, I still cannot believe. I mean, that was advantage bar all the way to Głogowski for the vast majority of that game. Really impressive stuff from Michael, who scraps out a 2-1 with not a great deck.
Yep.
Right? I mean, that deck was not
5-1 in limited this weekend, and his first deck didn't look like a 3-0 deck either.
Yeah, and it was hard mode for him as well to get to that point. So really impressive stuff there from Michael, and now he gets to put this not so great draft deck behind him and pick up his 60-card standard deck again so that he can get back to the fight. And boy, I'll tell you what, everybody that makes it to the top 8 of a Pro Tour, or in this case, a Mythic Championship, they always reference the fact, hey, you have to get kind of lucky to win one of these or to get really late, But I got to say, it's a combination, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, that was tight play and some luck.
It's luck and skill, right? Because if you don't have the skill, you don't even give all the luck in the world is not going to help you.
Okay, well, we've got all the updates and everything at the news desk. But first, these messages.